As Somalia struggles to combat terrorist attacks from Islamist militants, the capital Mogadishu is ground zero in the uptick of violence. Help comes to Rwandan farmers trying to make the most of each harvest. And international graffiti artists join forces in Dakar to remember a Senegalese resistance hero. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. We begin tonight in North Africa, where several airstrikes and multiple explosions shook the Libyan capital over the weekend in an escalation of two-week clashes between UN-backed government forces and the Eastern Libyan National Army. Western powers in the Gulf are split over a push by General Khalifa Haftar's forces to seize Tripoli, undermining calls by the United Nations for a ceasefire. South of Tripoli, government forces resisted attempts to advance by forces loyal to General Haftar. Haftar's troops started an offensive 2 weeks ago, but has been unable to breach the government's southern defenses. Despite a call by the UN for a ceasefire in Libya, Russia and the United States have blocked a Security Council resolution calling for a halt to the fighting. The White House says that U.S. President Donald Trump spoke by telephone with General Haftar early last week, recognizing his significant role in fighting terrorism and securing Libya's oil resources. The disclosure of the phone call has boosted the commander's supporters and enraged his opponents. In West Africa, gunmen attacked a Malian army base in dawn raid Sunday, killing 11 soldiers and torching the camp in the country's west central region. That's according to the Defense Ministry. The army and the local lawmakers say the unidentified armed assailants assaulted the base in the Guira district at 5 a.m. local time after approaching in a convoy of 11 vehicles. In recent years, central Mali has been overrun by jihadists with links to Al-Qaeda. Last month, an Al-Qaeda affiliate said it was behind a similar overnight attack on an army base in the central region of Mopti, in which 16 soldiers were killed. The escalating violence led to the resignation last Thursday of the entire Malian government. The resignation also follows the massacre of 157 villagers in March by an ethnic vigilante group that shocked the nation. Now, for more than a decade, Somalia's capital city has struggled to combat attacks from Islamist Al-Shabaab militants. Somali authorities say in March, attacks tripled with 15 bombings occurring in just 1 week. Authorities responded with additional checkpoints, improving security, but making work difficult for the city's thousands of tuk-tuk taxi drivers. Mohammed Sheikh Noor has more from Mogadishu.
20-year-old driver Mohammed Deq checks his tuk-tuk taxi every morning before setting off to work. He's looking for a bomb. Al-Shabaab militants are known for sabotage, and their average monthly attacks in Mogadishu have tripled since March. Somalia's capital has thousands of tuk-tuk drivers, and they are often victims.
The tuk-tuk drivers have been badly affected by both explosions and roadblocks in Mogadishu. Meanwhile, the government says that it will tighten security, but every time it announces so, security deteriorates. For instance, 6 of my fellow tuk-tuk drivers were killed as a result of explosions that took place in Mogadishu.
The government's inability to provide security is to blame, say critics like Somali lawmaker and former security minister Abdirasaq Omar.
15 explosions in 1 week, and the numbers are going up and up. It's not slowing down. And one of the reasons why there's such an escalation is because the government hasn't had a policy or a strategy to counter Al-Shabaab insurgents.
Somali authorities dispute the idea that they are not working hard to secure the capital and defeat Al-Shabaab. To stop the surge in attacks, they increased patrols and set up more checkpoints.
We work both day and night. We want to connect between the police and community in order for them to be able to work together on security issues.
Somali security seized a large store of weapons earlier this month, they said was Al-Shabaab's.
The seized weapons include explosive belts, ammunition bombs, materials to make homemade explosives, and both heavy and light large weapons.
But Al-Shabaab militants are not the only ones responsible for civilian deaths. At least 5 people were killed in Mogadishu Saturday in violent protests by drivers angry over security forces this month, killing a tuk-tuk driver. While the circumstances of the shooting are unclear, over the last 3 years, security forces have killed more than 20 tuk-tuk drivers. But for drivers like Deq, navigating the threats of Al-Shabaab and rash security is still the best option to earn a living in Somalia. Mohamed Shahnour for VOA News, Mogadishu.
Well, Monday marks the third and final day of a constitutional referendum in Egypt that could allow President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to remain in office until 2030. Opponents say the referendum is marred by corruption and coercion, and the measure will roll back the democratic dreams of 2011, when a popular uprising led to the ousting of dictator Hosni Mubarak after 30 years. Supporters say a secure leadership will make Egypt safer and help the country climb out of an economic crisis.
Yes, I will vote. Yes, I will vote. Yes. I will vote because the president is doing all the good that he has done for us, ensuring the safety and security that we have. Look at all these hospitals he's building for free. Is not this all good? Who else before him did this for us? Can you name anyone who did similar things before him? May God protect him.
Well, the outcome of the ballot appears to be certain to many observers. For weeks, the Egyptian media, which are overwhelmingly pro-government, have been promoting yes votes, and no organized opposition has emerged to challenge the message. The military, which is a huge part of the Egyptian economy, will also increase its role in the criminal justice system if the measure passes. Now, since ousting former President Mohamed Morsi in 2013 after mass protests calling for his resignation, Sisi's government has been accused of jailing the opposition. The Egyptian parliament overwhelmingly supported the changes and announced the national vote last Wednesday. Results are expected by April the 27th. Now, Sudan's Transitional Military Council wants protesters to remove themselves and the blockades they have placed around the military headquarters in Khartoum. In a statement on Monday, the council called for an immediate opening of the roads and the removal of the barricades around the military compound. The council's warning comes one day after talks between the demonstrators and the military collapsed because the military is refusing to transfer immediate power to a civilian government. Protesters have been demanding regime change since December. Mohamed Al-Amin Abdelaziz, a member of the Sudanese Professionals Association, a main organizer of the protest, says the SPA is not recognizing the military council's legitimacy, and they plan to continue the sit-in and street demonstrations. Meanwhile, military ruler General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan told state television Sunday that a joint military-civilian council, which he says was one of the protesters' demands, is under consideration, but a decision has not yet been reached. Well, Sri Lankan police say another explosion was triggered Monday in Colombo. Officials say a local militant group with help from an international network launched a series of Easter Sunday attacks on churches and hotels that killed at least 290 people and wounded 500. Well, video by the Reuters news agency shows Monday's blast near St. Anthony's Church in Colombo. No injuries were reported in that explosion. Sri Lanka's health ministry announced Monday that it believes the National Tawhid Jamaat group was behind the suicide attacks at least six locations, now 3 churches and 3 hotels. Health Minister Rajita Sanaratin says the group is local, but the attacks could not have been accomplished without outside help. He says several suspects have been arrested.
But it is not all that, because we have got information about everything. There are some more already about so many arrests are being done. So we hope the majority, the security forces say that they are suicide bombers. So with that, we are doing all the raids and one by one we are catching, and all their the places, actually the training places have been identified and we have raided already. So we have taken all the actions by now.
Well, 24 suspects are being detained in connection with the blasts, according to the Associated Press. Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena's media office says emergency measures has been introduced to be confined to dealing with terrorism and will not hinder freedom of expression. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says there was prior knowledge about the possibility of attacks. He says an investigation will be conducted to determine why adequate precautions were not taken. Now, people around the world have condemned terrorist attacks in Sri Lanka that have killed at least 290 people and injured about 500 others in Easter morning. Officials say about 30 foreign nationals were among those killed. VOA's Sladitsa Hoke has our story.
8 explosions hit Sri Lankan's churches and hotels at the time when Christians observed their holiest day. Pope Francis expressed closeness with the Christian communities targeted while they gathered in prayer.
All those who were tragically killed I entrust to the Lord, and I pray for the injured and all those who are suffering as a result of this dramatic event.
U.S. President Donald Trump was among the first of the political leaders who tweeted their outrage on Easter morning. Authorities in Colombo imposed a curfew and blocked social media until further notice.
We've ordered the arrest of everyone involved in this incident and have given all powers to the authorities in charge. We don't tolerate this kind of behavior.
No one has claimed responsibility for the attacks, but Sri Lanka's defense ministry says the culprits have been identified as religious extremists and members of a single group. Officials said suicide bombers were responsible for the majority of the morning's blasts. 8 people were arrested soon after the attacks, but the search for others involved continued.
Right now, the CID, the police, and the 3 forces are doing all the investigations. We believe that all the culprits who have been involved in this unfortunate terrorist incident will be taken into custody as soon as possible. They have been identified and they are taking the necessary investigation, and they will be taken into custody as soon as possible.
It was the worst violence to hit the South Asian country since its civil war ended a decade ago.
During the 30 years of civil war, we had lots of explosions in Colombo. We are used to our airport getting blown up and the central banks, things like that. But it's been 10 years of peace, and we got used to that.
Security was stepped up at Sri Lanka's international airport and elsewhere after the attacks on Sunday. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Religious humanitarian organizations that receive U.S. government funding to provide disaster assistance worldwide are required to separate their relief efforts from attempting to convert someone from their religion or beliefs and missionary work. But as VOA's Brian Padden discovered when he recently invaded with Samaritan's Purse in Mozambique following Cyclone Idai, there is not always a clear distinction between saving lives and converting souls.
So that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals.
The Samaritan's Purse disaster assistance team in Beira, Mozambique starts the day with prayer. Team leader Nick Beckert then reminds the group they are here for both humanitarian and religious reasons.
Our mission is to save lives, to reduce suffering, and to share the hope of Jesus Christ.
Samaritan's Purse is one of many faith-based humanitarian organizations that have come to Mozambique to help this already poverty-stricken region of southern Africa recover from the devastation caused by Cyclone Idai. But because this Christian relief group receives millions of dollars from the U.S. government for its aid work, it must be careful not to violate federal provisions that forbid overt religious or recruitment activities. Samaritan Purse says it does not cross the legal line between being open about its faith and proselytizing.
Sharing the hope of Jesus Christ for us, it doesn't mean converting people or, changing somebody's background, or especially not in terms of whether they would receive aid or something as a contingency on that.
But some critics don't see a clear separation of church and state with Samaritan's Purse, which is led by conservative evangelical leader Franklin Graham, who has called Islam wicked and evil and also criticizes same-sex marriage.
I'll be honest, I have some serious concerns about Samaritan's Purse. It is a very strongly conservative, evangelistic Christian organization. And I think it always has the goal of converting people to that style of Christianity.
Federal funds for disaster assistance, Boston says, frees up private donations for missionary work. He also objects to the discriminatory practice of hiring only Christians for these federally funded jobs.
For the will of our gods.
And of past reports of Samaritan's Purse trying to convert Muslims in Indonesia. Graham recently told VOA that Samaritan's Purse's humanitarian work is intertwined with its religious mandate.
We look for ways to help people when they're suffering and do it in the name of Jesus Christ and try to find a way to not only help them, but we want them to know that God loves them and cares for them.
Despite concerns from civil liberty groups, recent American presidents, Republicans and Democrats alike, have increasingly supported faith-based organizations, including some Muslim charities, with more funding and fewer restrictions to provide humanitarian assistance. Brian Patton, VOA News, Washington.
Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Still ahead on Africa 54, helping Rwandan farmers get more of their harvests to market. But first, a look at Monday's headlines.
بالنسبة لرؤية تجمع المهنيين هم بمناسبة من التقينا احنا في وقت مبكر وتواصلنا معها مستمر.
Voices, we're talking about the news and issues you're talking about, sharing stories of development and growth across Africa, around the world, and in our lives. Topics that inform, empower, and change the rules. It's time for Our Voices with me, Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick,
and Hadiza Kiari,
and Ayan Bior,
and Orion Itangi Shaka.
It's time for Our Voices.
Rural Rwandan farmers may lose around 30% of their harvest before they even reach the market. This is due to a lack of adequate means to dry, store and transport the crops. To assist farmers with post-harvest crop losses, the Rwandan government, in partnership with the International Fund for Agricultural Development, is funding over 200 business plans submitted by farming cooperatives and small businesses. This include the construction and rehabilitation of improved maize drying shelters, potato collection centers and storage warehouses, along with training for 16,000 farmers to better handle their crops after harvest. We get more of the details in this report from IFAD.
Rotting potatoes, decaying maize, damaged cassava. Across Rwanda, farmers are losing around 30% of their harvests before they reach the market. The main culprit, the lack of adequate means to dry, store, and transport the crops. And now climate change and an increase in heavy rainfall is only making things worse. Maize farmers are also battling with heavy rainfall. Traditional drying shelters like this are normally covered but are no match for the heavy rain.
ubwo rero nubwo twubaka tugatwikira n'amashitingi ariko umuyaga uraza ugakuraho shitingi ugasanga ibigori biranyagiwe bimerera muri hangari izo ngizo umusaruro urangirika ubwo rero hagati wenda ushyize ku kigereranyo nk'ibiro 100 byanze bikunze ntago byajya munsi y'ibiro 20 ushobora kwangirika.
To assist farmers with these post-harvest crop losses, the government of Rwanda, in partnership with the UN's International Fund for Agricultural Development, or IFAD, is now funding over 200 business plans submitted by farming cooperatives and small businesses. These include the construction and rehabilitation of improved maize drying shelters, potato collection centers, and storage warehouses. The project has also trained 16,000 farmers to better handle their crops after harvest. Zainabu Uwezemana is the leader of a maize cooperative which has recently received funding from the project to upgrade their maize drying shelter. This shelter has the potential to radically improve their incomes. If their maize isn't dried sufficiently, it can be contaminated by the fungus aflatoxin, which is toxic to humans.
ubu bwanikiro buzatwanikira neza nta ruhumbu tuzagira abaguzi bacu bazaza noneho bizanye tutajya kubashaka ngo baturushya ngo harimo ngo za aflatoxine.
Improved facilities like this are expected to minimize crop losses for around 32,000 other farming families, helping them to access new buyers, improve their incomes, and build a more sustainable future for agriculture across the country.
Well, that report was by the International Fund for Agricultural Development, a United Nations agency. Here in Washington, Congress remains focused on steps it may take after a redacted report from Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russia probe was released last week. U.S. Michael Bowman reports Democrats in the House of Representatives are determined to obtain a complete and redacted version of the document, which found no collusion between President Donald Trump's inner circle and Russia, but neither established nor ruled out that the president obstructed justice.
The long-awaited Mueller report signaled that President Trump is in no legal jeopardy from the Justice Department on Russia-related matters. But what about Congress, which has the power to investigate and impeach? On Capitol Hill, Republicans who control the Senate are eager to turn the page. Democrats who control the House are divided on what to do next.
We cannot be an America that says it is okay for a president of the United States to try to block investigations into a foreign attack on our country or investigations into that president's own misbehavior. So I have called on the House to initiate impeachment proceedings.
By contrast, House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer cast doubt on the wisdom of pursuing impeachment, noting the American people will get the final word in next year's presidential election. Trump is far from silent, tweeting, quote, "The radical left Democrats do not want to legislate for the good of the people, but only to investigate and waste time. This is costing our country greatly and will cost the Dems big in 2020.
What we are going to have to decide as a caucus is what is the best thing for the country? Is the best thing for the country to take up an impeachment proceeding because to do otherwise sends a message that this conduct is somehow compatible with office? Or is it in the best interest of the country not to take up an impeachment that we know will not be successful in the Senate because the Republican leadership will not do its duty? That's a very tough question.
The White House insists Trump has been vindicated.
There was no collusion. There's no criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin to try to disrupt and spread disinformation about our elections. The president is not going to jail. He's staying in the White House for 5.5 more years. Why? Because they found no crime.
The Mueller report painstakingly documented Russian efforts to mislead and confuse American voters and harm 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's campaign. Russia has denied all wrongdoing, while the White House faults the former Obama administration for failing to stop Moscow's malign activities. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, and now here's what's trending. Dozens of graffiti artists from around the globe left their mark on the capital of Senegal, Dakar, on the 10th FestGraph event. The artist kicked off with a collaborative work that includes a massive portrait of Senegal's resistance hero, Alain Sitoé Diatta, this year's chosen FestGraph patron. FestGraph is the brainchild of local graffiti artist, a doctor whose motivation 10 years ago was to engage people and get them to think about the health, politics, and the environment through street culture. Doctor said he wanted to pay homage to the women who fought for black civilization. Previous FestGraph patrons included icons such as anti-colonial leader Amilcar Cabral and Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah. Well, next up, Chinese telecom giant Huawei has signed an agreement to build the world's first 5G smart hotel in Shenzhen. The 5G network can be employed to do either work or entertain. It will make more VR applications available in the future without costing too much in hardware upgrading. The Intercontinental Shenzhen foresees the future trend for the 5G technology and tries to get an early leg up, making itself more competitive. So far, the company has signed 40 5G commercial contracts and is likely to have a double-digit growth in its operator business this year. And in other hotel news, Meghan Markle will reportedly paint her baby's nursery with vegan paint, and now hotels and luxury apartments are also opting for animal-friendly products. Claiming to be a world first, the Hilton Bankside in London has created a vegan suite with the animal-friendly experience from the moment you check in. The key holder you receive for the vegan suite and even the chairs you sit on at guest relations are made from a material derived from pineapples. Meanwhile, in this luxury penthouse in Hammersmith, London, not only is everything on the dining table vegan, the entire interior design, from the furnishings to the wallpaper and even the artwork, is vegan too. And that's what's trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.